Hey, what's up guys? It's Zoe from Low Expectations and this is my short dungeon guide to Mythic Theatre of Pain in Shadowlands. I'll be going through each boss in detail and we'll be looking at some of the more important adds and packs too because they can be just as important as bosses. This guide can be used for Mythic Plus too because the only extra mechanics are the key affixes themselves. Theatre is a 5-boss dungeon. First and last have to be done in order, but the 3 middle bosses are on wings within the building, so you can choose which order you'd like to do them in. The 5 bosses are Dessia the Decapitator, Gorechop, Xav the Unfallen, Kul'tharok, and Mordretha, the Endless Empress. Theatre of Pain is located just off the flight path in the centre of Maldraxxus. Once you enter Theatre, you'll be confronted by 4 hard-hitting mobs before the first boss. Make sure to interrupt or purge these mobs, and if you have hunters or druids, make sure to soothe these mobs once they enrage. If you can't soothe, be ready to heal. The first boss has 3 mobs, Dessia, Sathiel and Passaran. If you're not going to do this on a high key, you don't need to kill them in a specific order, but generally going for Sathiel, then Dessia, then Passaran is easiest. Sathiel needs to be interrupted frequently because of his Necromantic Bolt and Searing Death, which just requires you to slightly spread. He also puts a big absorb shield that you need to DPS through, and he heals his other buddies too if you do not purge the ability Spectral Transference. Dessia does a fair bit of damage and also puts up a big absorb shield combined with a random fixate, but this can be soothed, and once you soothe it, he immediately stops fixating. Passaran casts Plague Bolt, puts bad patches on the floor and makes other players drop patches where they stand. This, however, can be dispelled by priests and paladins. On top of these 3 bosses, there's a sneaky stealth mob running around which opens on players, but can be displaced by roots, pushbacks or stuns. Once the boss is down, there's some roleplay which sucks you into the catacombs. This is where you can choose which wing you want to do. Chamber of Conquest leads to Xav the Unfallen, Altars of Agony to Kul'tharok, or Barrow of Carnage to Gorechop. In each of these wings are banners which players of the Maldraxxus Covenant can click to grant all party members a 10% verse and movement speed buff for 5 minutes. On the way to Xav, there are these big champions which require some focus. They do frontal and AoE damage, but if you take it slow, it should be fine. The ancient champion in this pack of 5 needs to be hard focused or CC'd while you kill the smaller mobs. Xav himself is a really fun fight. He sits above this arena. Brutal combo hits tanks really hard, and every so often he summons this oppressive banner which slows everyone's movement speed. You need to focus this banner down as soon as possible so you're able to dodge the upcoming mechanics. He casts 3 moves in different orders. Massive Cleave, which covers half the room in front of him. Deafening Crash, which damages in a circle around him and silences if you're casting, so be careful. And Crushing Slam, which is a frontal. The fun part of the fight is when Xav chooses 2 DPS to pull down into the pit to duel each other. The winner receives a damage buff when they're brought back up to Xav again. Make sure you either win or lose in 45 seconds, otherwise you'll both receive Cowardice. The next wing we're looking at is Gorechops. These mobs can be really tricky, and if anyone in your party can dispel diseases, it's a great help. Make sure to dodge these small mobs' explosions, and these ranted gas bags do not only do a frontal, but an explosion from their ass, so make sure you stand on their sides. The mob Blighted Sludge Spewer casts Withering Discharge, which needs to be interrupted as it leaves a nasty debuff. You can skip these large mobs without invisibility if you time it right. Gorechop himself is a fairly simple fight. He has these meat hooks that come from one wall and move across the room to the other side. There will be 2 gaps in the wall for you to fit between in order to avoid being hooked. Gorechop summons little adds, which when killed leave patches and also grips players in before doing a ground slam around himself called Tenderizing Smash. The last wing is Kul'tharok's. The ghosts do a nasty channel which slows you, so it's best to pull in sections back to the centre section or through to the next area. The Portal Guardian does a big AoE channel called Soulstorm which might require a healing CD. Pick up an orb and place it either side of the portal. This will decide which route you take among the floating platforms above. The left pathway has mobs which throw gusts of wind to push you off the platform called Nefarious Dark Speakers. You need to dodge them. The other pathway requires more interrupts, so choose your route depending on your team. Kul'tharok's fight involves a mechanic which requires the DPS to catch a ghost image of themselves which dart around the room while the player ticks down. To counteract this mechanic, you can slow the images by spawning them in the grabby hands. There should be 2 patches around the room. Once the images spawn, just wiggle on top of them to reabsorb them quickly and return to the boss. The boss will also put out 2 magic debuffs. The healer needs to be calculated about which they choose to dispel first, as it does a lot of damage. She also puts an AoE effect on the player which makes you have to stand out of the group. After the boss, you just take the portal and click the center panel on the floor to take you back upstairs to start the last boss. Mordretha is a really busy fight. She does a tank slap called Reaping Scythe and a big rotating frontal beam called Dark Devastation, which is weaved in between abilities which require you to move a lot. Make sure you're watching when Devastation comes in so you don't get caught off guard here. When the boss casts Grasping Rift, a giant vortex appears at one side of the room which pulls you in. Run against this and stay away from it. This can overlap with Manifest Death, which gives you a circle which requires you to spread. Every party member summons a Death Walker when the death expires, so place them near each other but not on top. They all need to be CC'd and blasted down. After 50%, the boss will summon ghosts which you need to avoid. Some are fighting and standing still, and some are beasts which charge across the arena in a cross formation. After loads of dodging and blasting, you should be done. I hope you found this guide helpful. There's a lot to remember here, but this dungeon is certainly fun. Thank you for watching my guide, and be sure to like and share, it really helps us out. You can find me on Twitch at 411 Games. I stream most evenings, so don't be shy to pop in and chat. If you'd like to see my other dungeon guides, there's a link on screen. I'll be making a few new dungeon guides, so if you'd like to be notified for the next one, do subscribe. Take care everyone, see you next time.